Good morning, Mystical Misfits. It's time once again. We're close to it, about 6 minutes. So, as notifications are going out, I'm just going to get my screen refreshed here. Get ready. Hope you're having a good morning already. I'm actually somehow had some, got ready early. It was very nice. Some time to relax and email a couple friends and such. So anyway, so we'll be starting in about 5 minutes now. I've been going through my top 10 principles. Good to see some of you online already. For top 10 principles for listening to that still small voice. Today we're at number 5. If you want to check out the other 4, just look over the last few Mystical Misfits morning sessions. I did yesterday. I did 4 at morning and the evening. But now 5. This is the principle. God normally asks us to move in small steps, which cumulatively may be quite large, but individually may seem so small as to be insignificant. God rarely asks us to take a giant leap of faith without moving us to the edge of the precipice in very small steps. The only exception I can think of is when we stumble into a situation that endangers us and God works us to get us out quick. So, good morning, Joan. Good to see you online. And I'm just monitoring my personal Facebook page right now because I've found that if I try to do more than one, it tends to do bad things like freeze up. So what I mean by that. So a lot of times when people come to me and say, "Oh, I've just taken a huge leap of faith," I kind of cringe because of what people think of that. They kind of get this feeling of excitement over kind of getting a jolt of which they consider awakening, and they just take a huge leap of faith, thinking that the more risks they take, the more God thinks that's faithfulness. And when it goes badly, they are afraid to get out to take a turn because they consider it an act of faithfulness to kind of stay the course. Well, there are times when we are called to take leaps of faith, I think, and I definitely think, but normally those come in very small increments. So if God is leading us to take a big leap, it is by very small steps. That my principle, as I've said before, is always to the greater the risk, the greater the need for discernment, and so I think that's why God leads us to these great leaps of faith through very small steps, so that by the time you get there, it just feels like not a leap of faith, but rather a natural progression based on what the past has given. So it feels more like a very small step, even though others will look on and say, "Wow, that was a huge thing." Well, I know I've been led to this moment for for months, for instance, or even years. So I think that's a very good principle. It also illustrates, that or reminds me that Spirit has patience with us, and if you look at the way evolution, takes place on this planet, it takes place in very slow steps, and there are some sheer points in evolution, but most of them is kind of layer upon layer, small development over small development that adds up to something very large in the end. And so any of the huge risks I've ever taken, and I've taken a few in my time, have always been through very small incremental things. Those of you who are outside of Omaha may have heard that we're part of my church is part of the Tri-Faith Initiative, and we made a huge decision to move for no good reason other than a vision, and the congregation took that very slowly. It wasn't just let's have a meeting and talk about it and vote, but it took us 40 days of hard discernment just to decide whether to move forward, then another year to make a final decision. And that's the way these things work when they're spiritually grounded. They tend to work that way. And small increments, that also allows us time the ability to change course if we are kind of taking a wrong tack. So it's easier to steer a boat in motion than it is to steer one that's dead in the water because it's taken a big leap of faith and feels like it's arrived. Um, so you can, if you're going off track, if you're continually, you're kind of going forward, and then being open to hearing a different word, then it's easier for Spirit to steer us back into where we need to be. So when you hear these principles, you may start this may start occurring to you that this really is a deeply relational God, and that is it. I have no idea how that works. I have no idea how the universe could be 14 billion light years across, and we could be relating to a God who is more aware of us than we're aware of us. I just know that is my experience. That's the experience of mystics throughout thousands of years and non-mystics. So none of us can know how it works, but we do know that it works. That there is a relational quality to God. I mean, God can be a very kind of neutral energy of life kind of thing too. I mean that's one manifestation, but that's only one manifestation of Spirit. That there is God seems to prefer relationship over our own perfection even. So that's why it drives me to meditation and reflection and continual kind of looking for God in the day, because God shows up. Even if I try to throw God away, God shows up. And sometimes that's a helpful part of the spiritual path too, but that's a discussion for another day. We are at our meditation time, and so I'll set my timer here. This morning I have we're being joined by the high C bell. Yesterday we did a low C bell. This is a high one. These are almost pure crystal, and they just have a wonderful resonance, and that tends to help people get to a deeper place a bit faster. And the fact that we're online together also kind of becoming entangled in some quantum or spiritual way also helps. So let's begin by taking a deep breath in, letting out slowly. As the bell fades away, let us let all thought of whatever we were doing before this meditation fade. And remember why we are here. Giving thanks for those who have joined us. And let us consider the last 24 hours of our lives. Where have you been blessed? What do you have to be thankful for? Where have you found beauty? Where have you enjoyed yourself, found joy, some measure of happiness? Especially where have you found love? For that is the closest to direct experience to God as we get. Love that comes to us through others, love that we give away to others. Sometimes if you get stuck in the gratitude mode, it's helpful to simply look at things you would commonly overlook, like the fact that you can draw water from a faucet. So much of the world can't do. It's not that God chose us to have that water and someone else didn't get chosen. We can't discern the mystery of why some have and some have not, and on certain levels we can on others. But what's important is that those of us who have such things give thanks and be open to where God may be leading us to help others who don't have these things. But it starts with gratitude. As we hear the sound of the bell once again, we let our prior day fade and consider. This morning I'm going to invite you to either pray for someone you care about who's struggling, as we have done, or shift the focus slightly and consider someone who is driving you crazy right now. Jesus says, pray for your enemies, and he's not doing that just out of some sort of pietistic desire or what have you. He's doing this out of actually helping us become fuller human beings. We heal ourselves when we heal those who oppose us. We think about someone who's driving us crazy, and usually people who act in hurtful ways have been hurt themselves, are acting from a sense of hurt. Try to find wherever you can think of where that hurt may be coming from, and then, by analogy, find that within you, a similar hurt applied in different areas. This person may have a false perception of why they're hurt, but they're still feeling it. You may have a false perception of why you've been hurt, but you're feeling it. So allow the grace of Spirit, the holiness of our Creator, the forgiveness into ourselves. Heal that hurt within us. And when we sense a bit of healing, a bit of putting the hurt behind us, then let us consider that one who opposes us or we oppose. And as that similar healing comes to that person and the root of their actions. In so doing, we heal some powerful stuff within us, regardless of its effects on the other person. If you're choosing this latter route, it's especially important to be more deeply bowed. I envision bowing deeply at my waist, opening myself to Spirit all the more, becoming a clean channel. if you're in the middle of a deep conversation with spirit, deep movement of spirit, you may want to pick this up again. 5-minute increments sometimes are not nearly enough to, once we're in the weeds. They do move us along in a helpful way. Now we move along, letting that person fade to the edge of our consciousness and consider ourselves. What is your need right now? You may want to, if you've been thinking about someone who is in that state of conflict with you, you may need strength or assurance, more help from spirit. Bow more deeply. I envision myself on hands and knees, not groveling, but rather acknowledging that I'm in a presence of a power that is far wiser than me, and far more loving than me. What do you need? Ask for it as specifically as possible. Ask for something that you feel is in alignment with spirit. It does us no good to ask for things that is not in alignment with spirit. I'm going to use the bell a bit during this stage. Help us hone in on that need and that request. Now we let our own needs fade to the background and bow most deeply, surrendering ourselves most deeply don't surrender to any other power than one who loves you beyond what you can imagine, who loves you far more than you love you, who has your deepest interests in mind, and wants to bring you most fully alive. Sometimes approaching spirit with no other reason than to be in spirit's presence, with no agenda, no thing you're trying to get from it. In fact, often that's the most helpful place to be. Or if this is a relationship we're having, what relationship wants to be in relationship if the person only ever wants to get something out of it? The beloved simply wants to be with the beloved, their beloved. So we put us there first and let the beloved take us wherever she will, he will. If you should have a hard time connecting or feeling a sensing and connection, sometimes just giving further thanks for being in the presence of Spirit, giving thanks for what Spirit has done in your life, helps dial us into that channel where it flows more freely. This time our meditation together comes to a close, but if you have the luxury of time, I'm going to close softly and gently so that you can continue wherever your conversation is left off. For the rest of us, I thank you for coming, for being a part of my own meditation, and we look forward to seeing you next week, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Central, Tuesday, Thursday, 9 p.m.